thing goes. 67 again. Oh. Hey guys, it's Bass here from Aussie Playground and welcome to my review of the Basher SaberTooth. Now this is a 1/8 scale 4-wheel drive brushless truggy available from Hobby King as an almost ready to run, meaning you will need your own remote, batteries and charger to complete the car. Now the truggy actually comes very well equipped. It has an 1845 kV brushless motor measuring in at 74mm long by 36mm wide, has a 100 amp ESC and a 18kg high torque steering servo, and all the electrics are actually waterproof. It comes with fully aluminium threaded body big bore shocks, front and rear pre-installed sway bars, droop screws are already pre-installed on the A-arms, and it has all the usual toe and camber adjustments that you'd expect. Now the car does come with 3 metal gear diffs, but they do not have oil in them, only a little bit of grease, so best you fill them up with oil to get the max performance out of the car. Alright, now I'm actually going to be starting this review at the end and simply say that I really like this RC. This is one of the best bang for your buck RCs that I've come across in recent times. It's very well equipped, it's very fast for what it is, it handles pretty good, and it's been very durable, aside from a couple of minor things which I will cover off very shortly. We're going to start this review here with the body, and as you can see, you know, the body is quite a loud color scheme. It's definitely an acquired taste. Kind of looks like a drunk unicorn threw up all over it. But aside from the color scheme itself, looking at the durability of the body, I'm actually quite impressed. I mean, when I did the unboxing for this, I didn't have a lot of hopes for this body, but it's been very good. If you can look past the color scheme, which I know some people actually like, if you don't like it, look past it if you can. And the body actually been holding up very well. I've got a tiny little crack here at the front, which I'm assuming would have come off of some sort of hard landing and maybe hit the shock tower and caused it to crack. But aside from the usual scuffs and scratches that you get from running an RC off-road, the body has been holding up perfectly fine. No complaints about that. Moving on to the tyres. The tyres are actually not terrible, but they do have their limitations as to where they actually hold some grip. On tarmac, they weren't super good. They kind of slip and slide a little bit everywhere, but weren't terrible. You can use this on road without too many problems. Loose gravel, where I normally run my RCs in the BMX track, these were a little bit hopeless. The tread pattern is quite small, and the lugs themselves, they're not deep enough, so they're not big enough to really dig into the looser dirt. On the dirt track, where I kind of muck around on the outside area where there's a bit of grass, that wasn't too bad, but on grass I did find that it slips and slides a little bit, especially if the grass is a little bit long. I suppose the biggest con about these tyres is that they're not good all-rounders. I mean, for a Basher vehicle, you'd expect to have slightly bigger lugs, slightly more versatile tyres where you can run them in various different terrains. I changed these over to the Proline Badlands, and you know, they're a pretty decent size. They're matching size very well, and these actually worked extremely well. These, I mean, for the people out there that actually know Badland tyres, they're an extremely good tyre for bashing. They grip on almost any surface, even on road they actually do quite well. So I'm very happy to stick with the Badlands on this truggy for the time being. Shocks themselves have been pretty good. The only issue I had with the shocks, I did have one of my shock shafts bend recently, kind of kept jamming inside the shock. A little bit annoying, but they do have upgradable shock shafts, which are supposed to be a harder steel, and I've changed all 4 of my shock shafts. Hopefully I won't have any more bent shock shafts in the near future. The shocks do tend to leak a little bit. They're not terrible, but they just keep that in mind that they do leak. You may need to top them up every once in a while. Now, when I took the truggy out of the box, the suspension was very under-dampened. It was almost like they had put water in the shocks instead of oil. First thing I did before I even ran the truggy is I actually swapped out my shock oil, and I think I used 60 weight originally, which was far too thick. I've now opted for 40 weight in the front and 50 weight in the back, and it's not too bad. It actually seems to be quite good. You can see that it sits up a little bit higher now. Another upgrade that I did was the springs. Now what I found is that on the Basher monster truck, the springs that they use on that, just the stock springs, are actually a little bit thicker than the springs that they use on the Truggy. So I actually swapped out the springs from the monster truck and put them on the Truggy. So fronts for the front, rear for the rear, and they've actually turned out very, very good. Certainly sits the Truggy up a little bit more, which is ideal for me because I do like to jump my RCs, and I've got a little bit more ground clearance this way. Of course, the Truggy does come with droop screws pre-installed, so I can just tighten them down and lower the Truggy down if I want to, for some speed runs or some on-road bashing, to keep the center of gravity nice and low. So that is still tunable even with the thicker springs. Shock towers have held up very well. I did have some concerns about the front shock tower. Proved me wrong. It held up perfectly fine. I mean, the truck, the car has taken plenty of tumbles, and yeah, shock tower at the front seems to be holding up just fine. That's not to say that I won't bend it eventually, or that somebody else hasn't bent theirs, but this one's actually been holding up pretty good. Front and rear pre-installed sway bars, definitely a big positive for this RC. Massive 5mm drive shafts, front and rear. It does have CVDs at the front, which is great, just standard dog bones at the rear, which is totally fine. The battery trays have given me no troubles at all. You can see that I've got some foams here in these trays. The idea behind putting some of these foams, now these ones here, these are the packaging foam that came in the box with the Truggy. I just cut them up and put them here. I've got a tiny little layer just on the bottom here to just cushion the battery pack, and then when I put this over the top, it kind of leaves it about this high. The reason why I do that is because when you put your battery in, let's say that's the thickness of the battery, and you want to put your pins back in, it's actually very difficult to do because there's kind of like no room between this wall and the pin. It's kind of tricky to do. So I've just managed to, you know, just a little homemade mod, just to finish the actual strap finishes up a little bit higher, and it just makes easy access for the pins to take them on and off. That's why I've done it that way. Of course, you know, some people I've seen just changing these out to Velcro straps. They actually feed the Velcro straps through these little grooves here. They cut them out, and they can loop some Velcro straps there. I've done this mod, and it seems to work just fine for me. The motor is a 1845 kV, as I said, surprisingly strong. The buggy topped out at 67 kilometers an hour, so extremely fast for something that's, you know, at this price point. I mean, even my ST4 from Thunder Tiger was not this quick out of the box. This is definitely a quick RC, so just keep that in mind if this is going to be your first one, or if you're not used to something at that speed, that this guy will get up and boogie pretty quick. It does come with a 100 amp ESC, which is fantastic, and as I said, all the electronics are waterproof. Steering servo, however, does have the power to turn the wheels, but I did find it was very lazy. I found myself overcorrecting sometimes on the turns, especially you know, when I was doing the big sweeping turn. The servo just took too long to get back into center. The steering wasn't as precise as I would have hoped, so I will probably be upgrading this servo at some point in the future. Who knows, keep an eye out for it. I might give you an update on that one. I did find, however, just sticking with the electrics for the moment, that my wires, my cables from the motor to the ESC were connected up the wrong way out of the box. And the way I found this out was, you know, I put my remote in, took the car outside to test it out, and next thing I know, you know, I pushed the throttle and it's not really going very fast. I thought, geez, this is really quite slow. I hit the brake and the car just took off in the opposite direction like a rocket, and I thought, oh, hang on, something's not right. So came in, swapped a couple of the wires around, and sure enough, it then nearly monoed off the line going forward, but it was obviously a lot more controllable going in reverse. It was just the wires that were swapped around, and I think I'm not the only one that's had this issue. I did come across somebody else that I think had a very slow SaberTooth out of the box, and it's just a matter of swapping the wires around. If it happens to you, check your cabling, and you should be fine. Yeah, you'll be able to sort that out very easily. As far as breakages go, I've had two other breakages. I've had the hinge pin, one of my hinge pins broke, and I replaced it with another stock one, and so far none of the other hinge pins have busted up on me, thankfully. So maybe it was a fluke landing when I broke the original hinge pin, or maybe it was just I don't know, just bad luck. I'm not 100% sure. I know that I'm not the only one that has had the hinge pin issue. If you check the net, you will be able to find other people with similar problems. There is a suitable upgrade that seems to be working for a number of people, and I've got the upgrades here. These are from TLR, and I'll have the model numbers in the video description for you guys to check out if you want to order these upgraded hinge pins. They are obviously a fair bit more expensive than the stock ones, but these apparently will fit straight in, and you should not have any more issues with broken hinge pins from there on, as far as I've been told. So another thing that broke on it, and it only just happened this last weekend, was I had one of these shock eyelids kind of bust up, which is, I've got the little piece here. I'll show you. It's only a tiny little plastic piece. These are no big deal. However, I went onto the Hobby King website to order some more, and I couldn't find these little shock eyelids by themselves. You had to buy a pair of shocks, which I didn't want to do. I didn't see the need to do that. Now, thankfully, I have a lot of RCs here at home, and I've got, you know, spare parts kind of floating around all over the place, and I managed to find some shock eyelids from some old shocks that I bent on my 835E that you see behind me. And surprisingly, they actually fit perfectly on. They even have the little slot down the side for the bottom of the shock cap, or spring cap rather, to slot into. They are a little bit thicker, which is a good thing because obviously they're going to hopefully last me a lot longer. But I did have to sort of stretch the opening on the A-arm. You won't be able to see it on camera, but there's a little slot here for the eyelid to slide into for the A-arm. I kind of had to sort of squeeze it in there. I opened it up with a bit of a screwdriver and slotted it in. It does fit. It's a very tight fit. You can always shave some of the plastic on the A-arm to allow a little bit more room. But I just sort of squeezed them in there and it worked fine. Other than that, honestly, there's really no other complaints. I haven't had to do anything to the car. I haven't had the need to gear it up. Steering servo is obviously one thing that I'm going to need to upgrade at some point. All my other plastics, A-arms, links, everything else has held up just fine. There's actually very little slop on these on the steering and on the wheels all around, which is actually very, very good and quite surprising, to be honest. The chassis has actually been holding up very, very well. It is 3.5mm thick, so you shouldn't have any issues there. The only modification that I did, before I forget, is actually in the diffs. It comes with 3 diffs. Obviously you got front, rear and center diff. Now the diffs don't come with any oil in them. What I did is I opened up all of them. I think I used 100,000 weight in the front and rear, and I used 500,000 weight in the center. And that seems to really liven up the buggy. You have much more even power distribution, especially on turns as well. It will turn a lot more now. It will spin out on you a little bit more as well, so you do need to be a little bit more gentle on the throttle if you do fill those diffs up with oil. They only just have grease in them, so they're quite open, and yeah, they'll allow wheel slip pretty much everywhere. There's really no other complaints about this one. For me, this has been a very, very solid RC. It's definitely not going anywhere. I'm going to hang on to this one for as long as I can because I absolutely love it. All the parts, I mean, even if you do break an A-arm, or if you happen to be unfortunate to snap a shock shaft, everything is so affordable from Hobby King. Unfortunately, they don't always have everything in stock, so if you do find yourself with an RC from there that has constantly, you know, a specific part breaking, stock up on them. You know, most parts only cost a couple of dollars. Some of them you can buy for just cents. So you buy 2 or 3 and you've got spares to last you a while, and I think that's probably a smarter way to go about it. But with this one here, I really have very little to complain about. It's well priced, it goes very well, it handles well, very durable with aside from a couple of minor things. I mean, this is by far the best one for the money that I've come across in a very, very long time. So for me, this gets 2 big thumbs up. I mean, I'll give it out of 10 a 9. You know, it would be good if they harden up the hinge pins out of the factory, or maybe the shock shafts, but we're nitpicking here. I mean, I really punished the car to get the shock shaft to bend. The hinge pin was a bit unlucky though. So it's really it's a higher score that I can give for something like this. Very, very good job, Hobby King. If you want to get this one, go get it. Definitely highly recommend it. That is pretty much it for me, guys. Don't forget to check out the video description for more links on the Truggy, as well as a link to my Facebook page. Please give the video a thumbs up before you go, and thank you very much for watching, and I'll speak to you again next time.